reality check about communicating with your teenage children. How do you know when they're telling you the truth? To find out, we have turned to an expert in communication and lying. Barry-McManus is a former CIA agent and an expert in deception detection. We thought who better at CNN would know. All right, so your teenager looks at you in the eye and you want to know what? Are you having sex? Are you having drugs? How does that conversation go down, and how do you know that your teen is lying?
Well, first off, Carolyn, I think you have to understand, you have to establish a baseline of communication. I'm hoping that over the period of time that you've had this teenager, you know what good behavior is and bad behavior. You have to establish a baseline somewhere, because if not, you're going to sort of be misled. So you establish this baseline for those 15, 16 years that you spent with your teenager. You understand what good behavior is and bad behavior. You understand what verbal and nonverbal and physiological responses are in your teenager, so that when you ask those questions and you notice abnormalities, you'll notice the difference.
Give me an example.
Let me give you an example of non-deceptive behaviors, in the sense that
he's telling the truth.
He's telling the truth, right? So generally a kid will be spontaneous, give you yes or no answers, no hesitation, looks you straight in the eye in a sense. But let's look at some non-deceptive clues or indicators that your child may have. You know, those non-deceptive behaviors that are non-verbal, that a child will give to you.
Okay.
Let's say he fidgets in the chair, he's uncomfortable looking at you, he turns away. There's things that he's going to do non-verbally, also verbally. Let's think of verbal things that a child will say.
Well, they're just going to deny, you know, Charlie, are you using drugs? No, Mom, come on.
But look at those behaviors. Carolyn, think of all those things that you know about your child, that contact you've had with him for all those years, and all of a sudden now things aren't normal. His verbal disclosures aren't normal. His nonverbal behaviors aren't normal. So you're going to see all those things, and you're going to look in combinations of behaviors, combinations of things that your child does that are different than things before. But also there are a number of other things that you have to think about too. Because beyond knowing what is truthful and what's not, what do you do even when you think something is not correct? When you think your child is doing something and you're not right
so there's
there.
that confrontation.
Yes. What do you do then? I'll give you some suggestions. First of all,
most parents threaten, by the way.
Well,
I think, you know, if you don't tell me the truth, and I know that this is what you're doing.
That's exactly right, and I say that's not the thing to do. I say stay involved with your teenagers throughout. And what I mean by stay involved, get to know what's on their mind, get to know who their friends are, get to know what books they're reading, get to know what music they're listening to.
So you're saying if you know all that in the same way that, say, a CIA operative is scoping out bin Laden's habits and hideouts and friends and family, and if you have all that information about your teenager, then you're going to know what's amiss. You're going to know when they're lying.
What I'm saying is information is power.
Okay.
We do know that. So the more I know about you, then of course the more facts I'm going to have when I do elicit information from you. Also, beyond being involved, you have to think about your own behavior that you give off. Things that you may have not taken consideration. Things that when you talk to a person, of course, your own communication, both verbal and nonverbal.
What if your teenager's a really good liar? Looks you right in the eye. No, I'm not taking drugs, Mom. What are you talking about?
Well, the key is not just being a good liar, because things still oozes out. Things still will leak out based on behavior. No one necessarily can hold all of that in, because we're dealing with emotions. We're dealing with emotions. And also understand, with the idea of privacy, which also plays a very important part, a teenager sometimes will want to share information with you, but they feel there's no confidentiality there. They feel that if I tell Mom or Dad something, Mom and Dad is going to run and turn away and tell somebody else. So you got to consider privacy is very important for that confidentiality. And I will also say,
give them a safe place.
Give them a safe place to come. Also, what about active listening? You know, have you ever thought, wait, maybe you're not really sure that you're doing all the talking instead of doing all the listening? What about being an active listener, where it's not necessarily what the teenager is saying, but how they're saying it? These are some examples of things that you have to keep in mind.
All right. Well, you have a grown son.
Yes,
it's going to be a while before my kid's a teenager, but I'm going to keep all of this in mind.
Well,
Good
thank
advice.
you, Carolyn.
Thanks,
Thank you
Barry.
very much.
All right. In the meantime, we're going to